Welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Kennedy, and I'm here to help you become the very best version of yourself. Chris, welcome to the show, brother. Mate, we were just chatting about your experience over in the States and some of the guests you spoke with on your podcast, which we'll get to very soon. I'm always curious to hear the origin story around how you started your podcast. What was the thing that made you go, fuck it, I'm going to start my own podcast? And also, what's your experience been since you've launched the show?
It's tied to a longer goal. I looked at where I wanted to be, and then I strategized the best vehicles to help me get there. And I guess I want to write books and tour the world and speak on stages. And I thought, how can I get bums on seats when I want to go and sell out a massive place?
Mm-hmm. Build that authority.
I need to have trust in my voice. Like, I need people to trust in the things that leave my mouth. And I thought, what's the best way to do that? Okay, well, creating content, getting people to like me. And then I thought, okay, well, if I do short form content, they're going to have to listen to millions of these little clips. It'll take me 10 years of short form content to really try and get people to love what I'm saying. Mm. But then I thought podcast was this long form version of that, where I can actually have deep, meaningful conversation. I can, unpack new insights that I've never potentially said before because it's so raw and uncut and unfiltered. Mm-hmm. And it was just a really cool way to help build that trust, and then just credibility in the sense of tying yourself to all the people and the guests that you're having on the show too. So that's why I started it. And also, I'm just a really curious person. I'm very curious and I like to educate. And so when I look at those two things, I go, curious, I can unpack people. All of my podcasts are guests. Mm-hmm. I can unpack different parts of their story and then unpack different ideologies they say. And that's makes me tick. It gets me going, gets me excited. I sat down in the seats and I was like, let's go. I love it, right? And so it was kind of just one of those things where it just made sense. And Fantastic. You asked about the experience. It's so interesting looking back at when I started. I had this delusional confidence that it was going to go well. Yep. And I had 50 followers on the page, whatever, and I had it in my bio, and I said I was a podcaster, and like everyone was like, what are you doing, mate? You're just another one. Like, it wasn't like you, it was really early days in podcasting. It was literally the start of this year. Yeah. But I just had this delusional confidence that this was the thing I'm doing, and I'm going to do it well, and I'm going to do it all in and go really, really big dog with it. And so I did that. And then I look back at the results, and it's been insane results. But my targets before starting were even bigger. Yep. And so that's kind of where it started. And that drive was very, very big to get it growing and make it a big show.
I love that. I've obviously been a bit of an outside observer of you up until now. Our first conversation was yesterday. It was last night on the phone, right? And I get the feeling that even off your conversation just then, or your answer just then, you talk a lot about almost the embodiment of the future you, right? I talk a lot around us embodying the version of ourselves that we would need to be to have the outcome that we want in reality, right? And then reality catches up. And so we're not necessarily responding to the instant outcome. We're not responding to what's in front of us right now. We're really embodying the frequency, the person that we need to be in order to have the outcome that we want. So it's normal when it does happen. And I get the feeling that you're someone who just loves personal growth, right? Who loves continue to evolve. And I've only really kind of seen you in the stage that you're in right now. Tell me a bit about the version before this, like before all of the podcast, and I guess now the audience that you have as well. Tell me a bit about the old Chris before this all kind of come about, and how that differs between, how you feel about yourself now.
It's very different. I think I was wearing a particular mask that thought I wanted to be a businessman, CEO, guy that run all these business, had these software companies, massive exits, all this money. Mm-hmm. And that was me. And I remember I was, dropped everything in grade 12 at school just to try and start these stupid businesses with my best friend Sam. And we would just do all of this different stuff, trying to make something work, and would get all these investors on board, and would be we're thinking big picture here. We're thinking business. And I do think there's a lot of resemblance between business and life. And I'm so grateful for that obsession over business at a young age, because I think it's taught me a lot. And it's also given me such a good foundation in terms of business for everything else that I'm doing in my life. So I'm very grateful for that. But the way that differs now is since growing the audience, since feeling the impact you can make on someone and a lot of people, and having certain encounters in real life that have really changed my perspective on certain things, I kind of had to like have a hard look in the mirror and go like, is this actually me? This business guy, software
authentic?
company, like, is this me? And the conclusion I came to was, well, no, it's not. And I had to have this massive ego death where I just had to remove the ego of wanting to be this Mr. Businessman guy and go, no, I actually think I really want to make an impact and serve for people and stop just focusing on money all the time, because I found it wouldn't even work. And then I was trying so many things and it just wouldn't click. And I thought, well, let's just put all this thing making an impact seems to be working. Let's just go all in on that and see what happens. And then I did that, and more money flowed in than I'd ever made before in my life from doing so. So that would be probably the distinct difference, is where my focus is and the things that actually I think matter to me.
Matter. Yeah. Isn't it funny, like with money, you look at money, which is energy, right? And when you have that shift, and I'm keen to tap into this whole ego death and the identity shift in a second, but when you realize that money, like the flow of money is just how much value can I add to the world? And the money will continue to flow. And it's like, as soon as this happens with everything, right? As soon as you actually stop giving a fuck about wanting or needing the thing that you desire, it flows so much more freely. And how did you go with the whole identity shift, right? Going from, you said the whole ego death side of things, like how was that process for you? Did you find it difficult to let go of the old identity, or was it something that just felt so natural and authentic that you just flowed straight into it?
Yeah, it's interesting with beliefs, because when you're an identity is just kind of a belief in
Correct.
who you think you are, really, right? And so if there's a strong enough belief elsewhere, it's pretty easy to drop off an old one.
Yeah.
And I think it just like step by step. But I really want to unpack that thing you're talking about where money just flows, its energy. That's where I think a lot of people go wrong, is they pedestal things in life. They pedestal the gorgeous girl, they pedestal the money, they pedestal the job, they pedestal the body, they pedestal all these things that they want to have.
Yep.
And the problem with things that are on a pedestal is things that are on a pedestal are harder to get. That's why they're up there.
Yeah.
And so like you're reaching for these things all the time, it's so hard. But when you come to the understanding that like in the ebbs and flows, money just comes and goes and it's all equal. You're not putting anything on a pedestal. It's okay, right?
I'm glad you said that, right? Because with the pedestal thing means that we're separate from it.
Yeah.
We see it as separate from ourselves, but everything that we desire, we possess already.
Yeah.
It's already within us.
You're just one with it. And understanding that is quite a profound thing for most. And
100%.
It's this whole concept around abundance mindset, but you can take it too far. And I've taken the abundance mindset too far with a lot of things as well. And
give me an example.
It's a blessing and a curse. But I think I've had this abundance mindset to the extreme, particularly with money as well, where I do not value it at all. I don't give a fuck at all about money. And I can make so much money, but if something makes sense, I will buy it, or I will invest in that course, or I'll do this, or I will. But if it's awkward at the dinner table and there's 8 of us, I don't care. I'll just buy the dinner. And the reason for that is because I'm so confident in my future self that the money I'm making now is going to be so minute comparative to what I will be making. So I don't care if it's a lot of money in the moment now because it's not going to be.
Yep.
And that's my frame with a lot of things. And so sometimes it does go over the top, right?
Yeah.
But I will pay that cost any day of the week, because the upside of having that mindset, for me, I truly believe is so profound and powerful. Think about, I was thinking about this the other day. Think about all the little things that people worry about that mean fuck all. Like think about like when you're driving past the fuel prices that they've gone up 10 cents, and you actually look at that thing at the fuel station and you think about that number, and think about when you go for a drive, there's all of these fuel stations and you're doing it all this time and it's just bottling up in your mind. You don't think it's a big idea. Or the coffee goes up 50 cents. You don't think that's a big thing to worry about. But imagine if you got all of those little things in your life and you remove those worries, how much lighter you would be.
Yeah.
And that's the lens I'm trying to live my life in. Like nothing actually really matters.
Yeah, I love that. I think the other part of that as well is, you know, what you put your energy and your attention towards, or what you really focus on, is going to expand, right? And so all these little problems continue to expand into bigger problems that were never once a problem. But at the same time, it's also creating all this resistance. And so when we talk about like attraction and abundance and stuff, it's like you cannot attract something that you have a resistance-based thought or feeling or belief around. It's like people wanting to attract money, or, you know, the girl, the guy, the car, the job, whatever it is. But then, as you said, it's either on a pedestal or there's a heap of resistance around it. And so why are we going to be rewarded or receiving these things that we have so much resistance around? And, you know, similar to what you said before, it's like once you let go of that resistance, the flow of things is so much better. And I think to get to that point, because people really struggle to get to the point that you're at. And I think to do that, it has to be finding this authentic self, finding the purpose, or whatever it is that truly lights you up, is the easiest way, because then that is your focus. That's where you put all your energy and your attention, and that's what matters. And all these other things, as you said, they mean fuck all of a sudden. All these things you were so worried about once upon a time, you realize just don't matter.
You know what I think? It's a next step further than that. I think the true thing that allows you to be able to not worry is to be put in that low time, or your perceived low time of out of money or whatever it might be, and make it out the other side and go, oh, that actually wasn't that bad.
Correct.
Or you go through some shit and you go, that was fucked, but I still made it out the other side. Because what that does is it just gives you confidence that you are going to be okay no matter what.
Yep.
And honestly, I think like the stoicism approach from Ryan Holiday, where he says the obstacle is the way, like the obstacle is the only way. Like the shit is the only way to get light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think like when you go through more shit, life becomes a lot more enjoyable because you've got comparison points to the low. And so for me, when it comes to this abundance mindset, like I could lose everything tomorrow. I could literally go bankrupt. I don't have family, don't have kids. It's just me, right? Like I could go bankrupt and I'm fine. I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I think when you have that, and truly I feel that, right? It's like when you have that, it's like you're not as fazed by those little things,
right.
And you're not as fazed by going down into those low times. They're shit.
Yeah.
But it is the way to, like, the lower the lows, the higher the highs. I truly believe that. And when we can experience these lows, get excited in that moment, as hard as it might be, because that is the key to those euphoric feelings that you're going to have on the other side. And so when you can frame that the bad times are the best thing for you, it allows you to go through those bad times a lot more. And they are the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Because you build character, which is probably the most valuable thing you can possibly obtain.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Something that a lot of people tend to struggle with is when things are going really well, right? We talk a lot about vulnerability. Well, we talk a lot about it on the show, and I think people look at vulnerability from one lens of like, oh, things are going bad for me, I'm going to be vulnerable, but you kind of know you're going to get some sympathy and you know you're going to get this uplift, right? But it's almost harder to be vulnerable when things are going really well. And something that a lot of people tend to struggle with is when they find that authentic voice, they find that purpose and they go all in with it. People that were once in the frequency that you're in or in the stage of life that you're in tend to drop off or fall behind, and people find it hard to deal with. It can be hard to deal with, right? Particularly if it's close friends, family, whatever it may be. Throughout this last few year period, as you've continued to evolve and continue to grow, is that something that you have experienced or struggled with at all? People that were kind of the right people to be within your circle at one stage of life, but now are no longer continuing to evolve themselves. And so you almost, to an extent, sometimes you can feel a little bit guilty. It's like, okay, everything's going well and I know exactly what I'm doing, but these people they can still be very close to you, but are almost falling behind or can't see life from the lens that you're seeing it from.
Yeah, I think that's going to be common in everyone's journey, you know, because how can you expect the people that you knew at school or that you knew back when you were younger or even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, how can you expect them to have the same beliefs as you? I think what's interesting about relationships, and this is like really why friend groups change so much, at least for me, my friend group has changed so much. It's been so hard to keep the same friend group around because I'm growing so much, they might be growing so much, and we're kind of sharpening the sword on who we are as a person. And the more we do that, the more we know what we want and what we don't want. And a lot of the time, the people that we used to hang out with have more things that we don't want than what we do want. And then we just keep sharpening that sword. I think the guilty thing, I've never felt guilty for leaving someone behind. I think it's just an evolution, and being able to respect where they're at in their life and go, yeah, I understand that that's what you're doing. It's really not aligned with me. Or maybe a big one for me is when people are like kind of really negative. I think the energy, when someone's got a really negative energy, that's the worst. Like, you need to get them out of your life.
And you're responsible for that too.
Yes. And you brought up just before family in this equation as well. I think family, friends, it doesn't matter who they are. You need to remove the emotion out of it, how long you've known them for, what they've done for you, and actually think about what they're doing for you right now. Because at the end of the day, that's what's affecting you right now. It's not the fact that they brought you up when you were 10 years old, and now that they're being a piece of shit to you, you should keep them in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably where the guilt comes in. Whereas for me, I just strip it right back to first principles, and I just go, okay, are they a net negative or are they a positive in my life? Quite literally, friends or family. And if they're a negative in my life, they're family, I can love them from afar. I don't need to spend all my time with them. I don't need to call them every week. I don't need to speak to them all the time, because I only have this mental battery for my day. And if that is going to like drain me by doing it, I'm not willing to pay that cost.
Yeah.
And so it's just appreciating them and what they're doing, wishing them all the best, but not having them in your space, because ruining that energy taxes all the other time around that interaction as well. And it just kind of ruins the flow of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. And I think that, I'm glad you've explained it exactly like that, because it really does put the spotlight on the fact that it is your responsibility. I think one of the main reasons people end up in this victim mentality is because of the fact that they just don't take responsibility for certain things. But a lot of this comes from beliefs, right? Or it comes from comfort. It comes from thinking, could be family, could be friends, could be whatever. We can only be treated in the way that we allow ourselves to be treated, right? And so if at some point in time, doesn't make what the other person's doing right, or doesn't make you wrong, but it is your responsibility. And the sooner people understand that, the sooner we can take action to remove the heaviness and all of the low frequency or toxic people within our life. And you're the one who gets to benefit from that.
And take it one step further. Everything is your fault.
Yes.
Like, everything is your responsibility. If you blame something on someone else, what benefit does that have? And I think understanding that everything that happens in your life is your fault. Because even if it's not your fault, there's no benefit on putting it on someone else.
Correct.
Because the best way I could probably explain this in my head anyway, and sometimes I share thoughts that I like and other people seem to like them too, but the best way I can explain this is like when you win and you get a trophy, the trophy masks all the problems that happened in that victory. So, like, you've got a victory, you've got the trophy. It doesn't matter that if there's any problems that on the way to that, it doesn't matter because you've won anyway. And I think when you win, you still made mistakes along the way, but you don't seek for the problems and you don't seek for those mistakes because it's masked with a trophy. However, when you lose, you're forced to look within and look where it went wrong so you can improve to then hopefully win next time. And I think, like, the problem with what happens with people is if something happens to them and they don't take ownership, they put it on someone else, they're basically saying they've won and it's someone else's fault. It's not them. They're not the one in the wrong here. It's someone else. So they're masked with this thing that they've won because it's someone else's fault, not theirs. And a byproduct of that is they don't look within and go, where did I fuck up here? And grow. And so then these things go in these cycles and they repeat the problems.
Themselves,
but then they keep blaming it on someone else, so it's not their fault. So then they never learn, and then they wonder why that they keep having the same problems. And then they even go like, it's negatively reinforcing to the next level. And they go like, why does all this shit keep happening to me?
Yeah.
And I think 99% of your problems will be solved if you just take ownership on everything that happens. Like, even if someone cheats on you, like, fucking good, it's your fault. What did you do wrong to make them feel like you weren't enough? It's your fault.
Yeah.
Because what benefit does it have if it's not your fault?
Yeah,
And I truly
exactly.
believe that.
Yeah, I agree. What how do you define success now? Like on this current day, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, it's so subjective, hey. Success is such an interesting term.
It is.
I think you've got micro successes in life, and I think those are the more important ones. Like, for me, success is like, how did I show up on my average Tuesday when there's no cameras around and there's no one there and my alarm goes off? Like, do I press snooze? When I said I was going to get up and go in the ice bath, do I get in the ice bath? Yes or no? Like, all these little successes throughout my day is probably the best way for me to define success on an average day when there's nothing important happening. How do I show up for myself? Because I think for me, I look at like the long goal and where I want to be and all the things I want to have, and that's the thing that really inspires me. But ultimately, like, the days when I'm motivated, they're not the ones that actually matter, because everyone can show up on those days.
Exactly right.
So I think, honestly, like, true success for me is mastering probably all the main areas of life. So health, time, and relationships. I think if we can, be healthy mentally and physically, we can take control over our time. So put systems and processes in place with business to take control over that time, and then master and cherish meaningful relationships. Like, I think that's the key, and relationships at the end, because I truly think relationships are the most important thing in our life. I think if we have no connection, then what's the fucking point?
Yeah.
And so I truly believe the reason we're spending the time investing in our health mentally and physically, and also spending the time in business to unlock our actual time.
Yep.
The only reason we're doing both of those is to be able to build and foster great connections. So success for me would be able to have great connections and all the micro wins along the way, for sure.
Lovely. When you go back, let's say before, we started the conversation today around the phase in your life where the priority was business. It was like making money. It was the vision was different to what it is now. What was the real driving factor for you to double down? Or at that stage, were you prioritizing like your health and fitness from a mental and physical perspective? And if not, what was the main driving factor that turned that into a priority?
Are you talking about to change it to like impact and fitness and health? Or?
More so just for yourself, as in when you were in that phase of life, where was your mental and physical health something that you were still prioritizing, or was there a turning point that led you down the path of going all in with the fitness and the mindset side of stuff?
I think my fitness has always been a priority. I played high-level sports AFL at a young age. I was in the Gold Coast Suns Academy there, playing at a high level for AFL. And so that competitive nature was always there, that team sport nature was always there, and that work behind the scenes, hard work, and focusing on your health and fitness was massive for me. I think the main thing that changed, like, naturally when you get into business and it becomes the focus, something has to drop, and like something kind of has to give. And so I think I've gone through phases in my life where I've been more heavily into my health and fitness than others, but I've always kept like a pretty good baseline, which I think's so important. Like, I can't take, like, I struggle to take people seriously when they're overweight. In fact, I actually can't really. It's like that's being a little bit disrespectful in my eyes, unless there's something really strong, unless there's something like that actually stops them from being able to walk. I struggle, or they have some sort of something that I don't know. I struggle. And so for me with that, I just go, I know how much more respect people give me when they shake my hand and it's firm, or they give me a hug and they can feel that I'm solid, right? And I'm strong. I know there's respect garnered from that. And so I've always prioritized being fit and healthy. So I just think, that's always been a big part of my life. But then as I hang out with people and coming down to environment and how important that is, right? Like, sometimes I'll hang out with, when my friend groups are really fit and healthy and active, it just got better. I didn't try to focus on my health. It just happened.
Yeah.
And when I'm hanging out with people more focused on business, that becomes more of the focus. Or when I'm hanging out with people that are spiritual woo-woo, then maybe I'm doing more breath work.
Yeah.
So
Beautiful.
it's kind of just like, what are you being influenced by, and what phase of your life is that in? Yeah, for sure.
100%. You seem like someone, obviously, who is quite self-aware. At the moment, if you've identified them, if it's something you focus on, what are your biggest vulnerabilities that you're putting most of your energy or as much of your energy as you can into improving or bettering, or just putting a spotlight on these vulnerabilities to turn them into a strength?
Yeah. I think it's really interesting. My battle at the moment has honestly actually been focusing on the things that I truly want and not getting distracted by shiny objects, But I think the second one, which has been a really interesting one, and I've realized how self-aware I am by realizing this, but having this, this is going to come across really weird, and there's going to be people going, oh no, don't tell me he's like that. But I can't help but feel this internally. I've never voiced this publicly ever before, but it's something that I feel. And I catch myself feeling like I'm better than people. It's a superiority complex that I have in my mind. And at times I can struggle to take people's stuff on board when I feel like my thought or way of that is better. And I think it kind of goes against what really taught me all the fundamentals as I was younger, was being that sponge and soaking in as much as I can. I found that, my biggest thing I'm trying to work on is really understanding just like where I'm at, the position that I've been in, and kind of taking everyone's opinions on board and just like hearing people, making people feel heard. Probably been a challenge. And I think it just comes with the dramatic growth and life change over the past 18 months. Like I recognize that what's happened to me over the past 18 months is not really like a normal thing. Like 500 million views, whole life changed, thousands of messages every week of people telling me how amazing I am. And it's a weird thing to deal with. There's no course on how to deal with 500 million impressions. Like there's no education course that you can just buy that tells you how to deal with the pressure that comes with being in the spotlight. And I think it's something that you have to learn. And that's just that process that I'm going through. I'd never voice this feeling of I'm better than you. It's a thing that I'm very scared of talking about because
it's vulnerable.
It gives me like the ick. Like
it can just be perceived in a completely different way than what you're meaning it.
Yeah, and I hate people that don't give you the time of day, and I hate people that have this weird chip on their shoulder where they feel like they're better than you. So that's the last thing I'll ever want to come across as. But I can't help but when I'm sitting alone and I'm thinking, or when I get a message from someone or something and I feel that, I can't help but feel that way. So that's something that I'm probably battling and trying to unpack a lot more recently.
I'll put this to you then. It may be something you need to think about, right? And it may not be an individual person, but off the top of your head, who is someone, doesn't matter who, it doesn't even have to make fucking sense. You don't even have to know how it would happen, but who is someone that you could spend time with, let's say 6 months of your life with from now for the next 6 months? Who's someone in your mind, if there is anyone, that you could go and spend time with where you don't feel like that and get back into that, or not get back into it, but really be that sponge because you feel almost out of place being around that type of person?
I think maybe I would still say that I'm a sponge, which is interesting, but I would say I'm not taking on board everyone's stuff. I think for me, I guess what I'm really feeling is I'm very specific with who I want to take stuff from.
Of course.
And it's kind of like I don't really want to hang out with you if you're not inspiring me, or I'm very harsh with who I'm
Yeah, I get
around.
it.
But to answer your question, like my best friend Sam is probably the person I tell anything. Like I tell him everything, and we chat all the time. And I think honestly, it's really interesting hearing just having that person there that can just be that soundboard for you for certain thoughts, because ultimately I think I think it's not all a bad thing that I'm not just saying yes to everything. I think honestly, when you become when you get a lot of attention and a lot of people want things from you, naturally this wall gets put up a bit, and I think just with that, it's just a natural thing that happens. But I think it's just a new feeling for me.
Yep.
Whereas typically I'm just being this underdog guy that's just trying. But I think when it comes down to that, it's like I'm still the underdog.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about people like Chris Williamson and all these other people that I'm looking up to, right? And Matthew McConaughey and people that really inspire me, I'm nothing compared to that, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just a whole lot further than I ever thought I could be. And so with that dramatic progression, I've developed this little bit of a wall. Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever been given, and who was it by?
It was by Lewis Mocker, and he said, I was struggling to post online. I just was like, who wants to listen to me? Who am I to be talking about this stuff? And I've spoken about this so many times. I actually think Pivotal Conversations clipped this one time, but he said, you don't need to be the best at what you're teaching. You just need to be 3 steps ahead of the people that you're teaching. And I was just like, it hit me in the moment where I was like, holy fuck, that's so true. I'm trying to wait until I'm an expert till I can start posting, because I'm like, who am I to be, who's going to want to listen to me? But then I realized the experts are not relatable in the slightest, because they're like 10 steps away. There's no way someone watching can even fathom being where they're at.
Yeah.
But if you're just 3 steps ahead, they can nearly reach you, not quite, but they can nearly reach you. And that kind of gives them this belief that you're the person that's going to help bring them out of the mud or wherever they are.
Yeah.
And I think that the next progression to that is, okay, yeah, 3 steps ahead of who? It's like, what is some sort of challenge that you've overcame in your past and you're proud of? There's something, whatever it might be. You may think it's minuscule. You may think it's not very big of a deal. But guess what? There's thousands of people in that exact spot, and they would love to know how you got to where you are today. So remove your ego, remove all of the imposter syndrome that you might have, and just give it a crack.
Yeah.
And that would probably be one of those things that I really think is a valuable thing for a lot of people listening.
I had this conversation a lot on that same topic, right? Like particularly with coaches, like in the fitness industry and whatever else. But if it's posting on socials, I'm not posting on socials to try and fucking show my ego to every other coach of like, I know more than you. It's like, who am I actually speaking to? And I think that's half the problem for a lot of people, is like, they don't even know who the fuck they're speaking to. It's like, am I creating a post to seem like I'm the most knowledgeable expert on the planet? Fuck no. Like, I'm not. But it's like, if the person I'm speaking to, as you said, gets value or feels like it's relatable or feels like they can insert themselves into that content or that story, then it's effective. And that's the whole fucking point of us posting it, right? Again, we're not here to fucking see who the best coach is or who knows the most shit out of fitness industry or mindset or whatever the fuck it is. It's like, are you helping the person that you want to be helping? And if you are, then that's it. That's all that matters. And that could be day 1 or it could be year 10. Same shit. It's the same outcome.
I think it just comes back down to, as well, like posting content that's authentic to you.
Of course.
Or just take it that next step further back, strip it right back. Doing stuff that's authentic to you. It's not about content. It's about doing stuff that's authentic to you. I think there's way too many people trying to copy other people because they're doing successful things, but they're doing successful things that work for them, not for everyone. And then when someone tries to do something that someone else is successful in and then they fail, they go, oh, nothing works. And I'm going, no, well, you've just tried to do something that works for someone else, expected it to work for you, and then you're surprised that it didn't. No, that's not surprise, that's delusion.
Yeah.
Like, you need to post stuff or do stuff that gets you like springing out of bed and you're excited about it and you're passionate about it and your eyes light up when you talk about it. Because then when you do that, people can feel that. And then people are going to resonate with you and then it will work. Like you just can't expect to post stuff or do stuff that works for someone else and get results. Not going to work.
I agree. What is the thing that makes you most uncomfortable?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that one. I think I try and think. I went on a retreat a couple of months ago and we got asked some certain questions like this. And one of them was like, what are your biggest fears and stuff? And when I truly think about it, if you get rid of all like the wishy-washy quotes that have gone viral online and, look at your deathbed and look back at the life you live. Like if you strip back all of that, I actually struggle to find like big fears and stuff. But in terms of things that are uncomfortable, I think there's so many things that make you uncomfortable. And I think if they're going to help you get closer to the goals you want to have, like when you do something that's uncomfortable, that's where you grow. Mm-hmm. Because if you know how to do something, there's comfort in that. And if you know how to do something and it's comfortable, you don't grow. So I think nothing in specific, but I think when I'm feeling like there's something that feels right to do, but it's extremely uncomfortable, that's when I really want to lean into that, I think, mm-hmm. and just try and go. And it's like a prime example, like I had Toby Pierce on the show and he's really good at BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he was like, oh, you should come. And I hate that. I did it once and I broke my toe and I never went again. But I was going, you know what? Like, yeah, I should do that. And I remember I rocked up. It was hard. It was humbling. But I felt so good after it because I was like, okay, I did something that's extremely uncomfortable. So I go to the gym. I'm not very good at cleans. My mobility and my thoracic's not very good. And so like doing a clean movement's quite hard. And I'm in a group class and everyone's seeing me fail. And I have to do like the weights that like the girls are doing. And and I'm like, okay, well, I can't do it. And so like those things are little things, but I can't think of like major things that are uncomfortable. I kind of have a bit of a fuck it approach. I've been through enough shit and I think the content helps with that where you go like, no one really cares. Like, let's just give it a go. And that's kind of my outlook I try to live by. Beautiful.
Do you feel like over this last 12 to 18 months, you know, as you said, you've had this period of unusual growth, right? Great growth, but unusual growth for most people's stories, right? If that growth hadn't have been there, but the purpose was still the same, do you feel like what you are doing at the moment and how you're going about it would be the same? Or do you feel like the success or the growth has had an impact on how you go about things now? If that makes sense.
Massive impact.
Yeah.
Massive impact. When I started blowing up on social media, I was doing it on the side and I was starting a software company with my best friend. And I was putting all my money into there, but then like I quit my job and was heartbroken and all this stuff. Told the story a lot of times, but I was probably just going to still be trying to do business and stuff. And I think the reason it impacted me so much with the growth was how much I got affirmed of an impact I was making. And it made me feel a certain way. And like when I felt this insane feeling from the impact I'd make, whether it was a massive paragraph or whether it was someone that was crying in disbelief that they saw me in real life, it just made me feel this euphoric feeling that I had never felt before. There was no money in the world. There was no pill I could take that would make me feel that way. And I just went, oh shit, like I need to do more of that. And so it just kind of made this spiral of it's an inspiration snowball that just kept getting bigger and bigger. And it was like the more I grew, the more impact I made, the more people affirmed to me how much of an impact I was making, the more motivated I was to make an impact.
The more momentum you gain.
The more momentum I gained. And so it kind of just went to this next level. And I think it just keeps refining over time, like what really makes me tick. And then doing things and working on self a lot and reflecting a lot just makes you realize what works and what doesn't work. And I'm young, and so I'm still learning so much. I'm just trying to navigate this life. And I've got big drivers and things that are driving me, but I think just like playing matches, win matches, like just keeping going one step ahead of the other is kind of the approach I'm taking to it.
Yeah.
Having these big goals, but just trying to strip it right back so they don't get too daunting.
Lovely. What made you walk? Actually, I don't even know if you're still playing at all, but what made you walk away from Aussie Rules?
I just realized that I was like, why am I doing it? Firstly, and I'm not tall enough to, unless you're like perfect at everything, it's quite hard to get drafted. I was the captain of the Suns team, and it was my draft year, and I just thought, like, I can make more money in business, so I'm not playing AFL to make money. Firstly, okay, like if I happen to make it, which is extremely rare and hard, like how would that life look and what would that be doing? And then I looked at the alternatives, and I was 18 and I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire at 20. I was naive as fuck. And so I just was like, oh, that's fine. And football got postponed due to COVID. So I just went, yeah, let's go and try this thing called business and take a punt on my life. And that was when I packed up my car and moved down to Sydney a day before the borders closed, and just went into a lockdown and started this new adventure. And I missed footy, but it was never a big enough drive for me to pick it back up. So I just hung up the boots and didn't really look back.
Love it. Is there that's an average question, but is there an athlete, or not even just an athlete, is there an individual on the planet that you look at and not take a lot of value from, but is there someone who inspires you?
Matthew McConaughey. All right. He's my number one guy. It's really interesting. So I've had different people, but he's the one that's always kind of stood the test of time. His book, Green Lights, is just so amazing. The audiobook of him narrating it as well. But the thing for me is his charisma, and just this charisma and character he has about himself. He doesn't give a fuck. He does things for him. But he's also just so authentically himself. And I really love his creativity and his authenticity. And I think he's one of those guys where if I'm ever lacking creativity, I just chuck his audiobook on and just listen to him talk. Doesn't really matter what he's saying, but he's just like, green light. He's like, all right. And I just, honestly, like he's the guy. He's my dream. You asked me dream guest, podcast guest, Tim. He's the guy for me, which is weird because he's not a podcaster. He's not, he's an actor. But I just think there's something so powerful and profound about Matthew McConaughey.
Incredible. Well, I'm looking forward to watching that episode at some stage in the future. Outside of his book, has there been any other books or audio books, or it might have even been a podcast episode that was quite profound for you? Yes,
it was one of the podcast episodes I had. I want to actually ask you a question because this could spark an interesting conversation. What are your thoughts on like progression and like having your happiness be tied to progression? I feel like a lot of people aren't very happy when they're not progressing in life, and when you're progressing, it's typically a lot more enjoyable doing the things that you're doing. Have you found that and this will tie into the podcast episode, the question that you're asking, but have you found that your happiness is tied to progression a lot of time? Like you find I find it's the same for a lot of people, but do you find your happiness is a lot of the time tied to when you're progressing in any field?
It has been, and there's still definitely certain areas of my life where it is, and for those areas, I find that really important. I, similar to you, grew up playing sport, right? Like moved to Melbourne for basketball full time. Was just my whole life up until then was just sport, football, basketball, and much is the same as the gym, and even with business, everything was measured off progression. It's like, has this improved? If not, then this is a fail, right? And we need to improve. Otherwise, what the fuck are we doing? What I really started to look at in areas of my life, because I pretty much got into like personal development and started to put any awareness towards mindset and mindfulness around 2016, 2017. And I kind of like hit this wall. Like it was like started partying way too much, had never really partied much before, and was always very much just like masculine energy of like do. In order to attract more, we need to do more. In order to feel successful or productive, it needs to be just more all the time. And I got to this point where I was like, in certain areas of my life, I realized that I was never present, or I would never experience the success or the growth or the good feeling of something doing well, or me reaching a milestone, because as soon as I hit it, it was the next one and then the next one and the next one. So nothing was ever enough. And so for certain areas of my life, I still truly believe that, I still follow that approach in many areas of my life, but it was carrying across to every area of my life. And so my ability to be present, or my ability to enjoy things for what they were, was just non-existent, because there was nothing progressing. So I was like, what the fuck is this? So now there's areas of my life where it's the opposite, where I kind of take a step back and change my perspective and go, do I need more here? Or is this what I wanted? Or is this what I want? And does this bring me fulfillment? And is there any reason for this to continue to progress? Now, as I said, there's obviously key areas of my life where that's not the case, and it is all based off progression. But I think the long fucking answer to a pretty simple question right here was, it used to be all or nothing for everything, and now it's changed. Now there's certain areas of life where I've really learned to change my perspective, and if there's stuff that I don't like or that needs improving, by all means, it comes back to being measured. But there are areas where I'm just content and happy with it, and that's allowed me to be present and actually enjoy things, and not look back in hindsight and go, fuck, I didn't even enjoy it for what it was, because I was so focused on what was next. I was not able to be in the moment there at all. How about yourself?
Yeah, well, I used to think that my happiness was just tied to progression. Like, I just thought that when I'm not progressing in my business, I don't want to show up to work. When my bench press has been the same for the past 8 weeks, I don't want to go do bench press. And when my relationships are plateauing and they're just dull, I don't want to go and have deep connection with people. And this was this conversation. And then I had Toby Pierce on the podcast, and this concept this concept blew my mind. I literally was speaking to him, explaining to him how my happiness was tied to progression, and he debunked it and blew my mind, and I'm about to enlighten you on my lesson. So he said that when your happiness is tied to progression, which it was for me and it is for most people, the more you progress in any field, the less happy you are going to be in that field. Because the way progression works when you're learning a new skill or particular thing is, say in the first 12 months, you'll learn 90% of the available information of that skill.
Yep.
And then to get to the other 10%, it might take you 10 years to achieve real mastery. So if your pursuit is mastery in any field, the more you pursue to mastery, the less you're going to enjoy it. Because if your happiness is tied to progression,
there's going to be
and
periods where
the
you're not.
progression declines the more advanced you get in that skill, the less happier you will be.
Yep.
And I was sitting there and I was like, holy fuck. Like the less, okay, so I thought this was a good thing because I'm striving for progression, but it is a slippery slope to being unhappy because I'm waiting for more of a jump of progression to be happy. And he said, it ultimately comes down, if your goal is mastery in any field, it comes down to having an intimate relationship with boredom, because things get more boring over time and you need to start to enjoy the boredom.
Yeah.
And I was just going, holy shit. Like that is something that reframed my mind and outlook on life, because of what I once thought was a positive thing being tied to progression. I want to progress. Yes, I'll be happier when I progress. That'll strive me to progress. It's like you can only progress so far. So if you want to achieve mastery in anything, get comfortable with being bored, because you're going to have many days where you do not progress, but you have to show up the next day in order to achieve that mastery anyway. And I was going, fuck. So to answer your question, before we spoke about this, what podcast did I get like a really valuable insight from? It was when I had Toby on the show. We spoke for over 2 hours straight, just strictly about business and life. And it was a profound conversation. And I absolutely loved that chat. So
Incredible.
there's a lesson for you.
Love that. What setting? It might be a podcast. It could be fucking at the beach. Could be in the gym. Could be wherever. What setting do you find you end up having the most amount of meaningful or deep conversations or profound conversations? Like, do you have like a certain environment that you just feel at peace being in, and that's where you feel like, you're able to tap into that flow more so than others?
Yeah, I mean, I was about to say that conversation kind of, you need to have someone else in order to have a conversation, but there's a lot of internal conversation with yourself that is typically more negative than positive, which isn't fun. But I would say that for me, what really sparks it is when I'm speaking to someone else that is listening. Mm-hmm. Because I think when someone's truly listening, that's when they ask counter questions. And so when you're properly present and engaged in a conversation, and there's two of you or three of you, but I like one-on-one more, when there's two of you and you're both listening to each other, like the questions off the back of it just naturally flow. And it's like, from a standpoint of being curious, which I'm really curious, if I'm interested in what someone's saying, I'll go down to a second, third, fourth, fifth level wise, and that's where the really profound stuff comes in. So I would say that, sitting in the seat, having a conversation is the thing that really lights me up a lot. I do really love it. But then also, like from a self-reflection standpoint, I think that's where a lot of my profound ideas come out, just when I've got pen to paper and a blank screen or a blank page and I can write something. And I started doing this journal exercise a few months ago, the best self journal it was. And anyway, on the left side, it has like today's goal and what you're grateful for and all this stuff. And basically the right side of the page it's like an open canvas. It's just like a blank page. Mm-hmm. And what I would do is I would write the stuff on the left, like what I'm grateful for, what will make today great, and this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then based on how I'm feeling in that day, but given what I've wrote, like what am I grateful for and what's going to make today great, like those thoughts, I will craft something poetic or profound and write it on the right page.
Right.
And I loved that because it was creating really creative and useful quotes or messages based on how I was feeling in the moment. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was this really profound way to come up with really creative insights, because when you actually are feeling it in the moment, and you're curious and you're self-aware, you can actually get those answers and you can kind of like come up with something cool. And then tying into that writing aspect as well. I used to be a horrible writer at school, so I think that's why I'm so driven to be a good writer now, but then being able to write something nice.
Yeah, beautiful. Is there anything that is really stuck in your mind that you did write down?
Yeah, so I actually literally made it my screensaver on my phone today. And again, this is probably one of those ones where it's like just a thing where being confident in yourself and having the ability to say no. Again, it could be coming down to that you're better than other people thing, but I think it's a really positive approach, especially when you're opportunity rich and everyone wants a piece of you. There needs to be some stuff in place. And I remember I wrote this down when I was getting all this opportunity and I was getting distracted, and I have to cull a lot of things, which is at the moment, I'm culling a lot of things because I got distracted. Those shiny objects, I said yes too many times. And I wrote down on the page, I said, "You are the prized possession." Remember that. Don't forget it. See past the shekels, the glitz and the glamour. Choose your opportunity and focus. And I think that one for me is really powerful in my life right now. It's like, yes, people want some stuff from you. Recognize that. And it's cool. It means you're on the right path because you're doing something right. But people want something from you, and not everything will serve you. And what I found is saying yes to things that take me off path ultimately does no good for me, because like I'm going to have to realign, and it's just a little step outside. And another one I wrote, and the reason it's relevant because I sent it to my friend, which I thought was really powerful. And this is talking about deep conversation and the importance of it. But I said, Connection is the key to our emotional well-being. However, deep connection stimulates the mind. It gets the brain firing on all cylinders. And this is the line that I really resonated with. I wrote, it unlocks a part of you that feels youthful yet wise, fulfilled yet curious. Deep connection makes you feel alive, which is the opposite of dead. More deep connection equals more life. And I think when I look at it, I go, a part of you that makes you feel youthful yet wise. I think being able to unpack deep connection and feel excited about something and having a deep conversation with someone can make you give you this youthful energy of excitement. But it also makes you feel wise, which a lot of people tie wisdom to age, which is not true, but wise makes you feel like old and mature, right? And whereas I feel like if something can make me feel youthful and young but wise, that's like the key for me. So if that was like deep connection is something that I think is really profound, and I like writing about that and doing it.
Beautiful, man. You said before that you weren't necessarily great at writing, when you're maybe a little bit younger. You're still fucking young, but is it something that you just actively started practicing with practices like this, or what made you? Was it the content that you're like, okay, I need to dial in on improving my writing or improving whatever punctuality, whatever it may be? What did you do to truly improve it? And was there an inspiration for wanting to improve it?
I just started reading.
Yeah,
I just started reading. That was all. I honestly just read, and my writing got better from that. I remember just reading, and I'm so bad at reading. I didn't read a book till after school. So
I was the same.
So like I was so bad at reading, but it's so powerful. Not about the lesson in the book. It's just actually like increasing your vocabulary and your ability to write and read is powerful. And so I started reading, and then I was doing content. I started posting some content, and I'd be writing scripts. And so for me, that was like this thing that I would do. I'd write scripts, and then I would remember the script, and then I would deliver the script, and then I would edit the video, and I'd listen back to it so much that I'd remember the concept through and through. And it was like this really cool loop. And it made me realize that the ultimate way for me to learn was to teach. And I was like, shit, the best way I learn is when I teach. So if I can come up with new ideas and then teach them, I'll truly understand those ideas. So the flow for that was writing the idea, memorizing the script of that idea, and then delivering it. And so because I was delivering it, I had to make sure I was writing it in a poetic and elegant way that could then be delivered. So it just kept sharpening the sword. And then one day I wrote a poem, and I got the biggest kick out of being able to write a poem, and I loved it, and it was great in my eyes. And I wrote this poem, and I just thought, holy shit, my little grade 8 self would be so proud of me. I was so bad at English. I just got the girls to do my assignments for me. And so to be able to do that was like such a big transformation. I got this kick out of it. So I think that's, as I said earlier, I was like, this is probably why I'm so passionate about writing and why I want to write books, is because I couldn't.
Yeah.
And it's just this sign that you quite literally can do anything. Most skills are learned skills, and you can learn them. And that was for me where it all kick-started. The poetry was this thing. And then I remember I did a poem. I remixed this famous poet's thing on TikTok. So she wrote a poem, and then it was about like from a girl's perspective, and I chimed in. I basically downloaded her video, and I would like I wrote a poem around hers, like extended her poem. So she would speak, then I would like chime in and speak, and then I'd plug her thing back in. And I remember it got millions of views. Next minute I'm doing collabs with this famous poet that has like 5 million followers online. And I'm doing this collab poems with her, and I'm going, how did I get in this position? So yeah, I really like writing. I've come a long way with it. So
incredible, man. Mate, before we wrap up, just on the topic of writing and books, I'm gonna come in with a couple of recommendations for you in terms of books if you haven't read them before. But I'd love for you to share, let's say, two of the more profound or impactful books that you'd love to recommend for the audience to tune into, whether it be audiobook or reading it.
Yeah, I'd say Atomic Habits and Purple Cow. They're the two probably books I would recommend. And then Green Light's Matthew McConaughey, and listen to that one.
Of course.
That's powerful.
Have you, the two I've got for you, I've mentioned one of them on the show before, so I might say three. The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. I think you would get a lot out of that one. The second one would be Stillness Speaks by Eckhart Tolle, or however the fuck you say his last name.
Yeah.
And then the third one, oh, fuck. The Alchemist. Have you read The Alchemist? You have to have read that. I'm sure you have.
Yeah, phenomenal. Love that. I've read The Alchemist. I have not read the other two. Eckhart Tolle, or however you say his last name. He's got some great stuff. I've consumed a fair bit of it, but I've not read his books yet. Yeah, the reason I said that Atomic Habits and Purple Cow, though, is Purple Cow is a marketing book, but I think you can apply it to, it's from Seth Godin, you can apply it to every area of your life. How can you be Purple Cow and stand out from the pack? The best way I can explain it is like if you're driving down a highway and you see this, is it herd? I'm going to say herd of cows.
It is now. Yeah.
You see this herd of cows. You're probably not going to look twice at them. There's like 100 cows. You just drive past and you'll get on with your day when you're on the highway and you see these cows. But if you were driving past and you saw one purple one, you saw a purple cow in amongst all of these other cows, you'd probably stop and take a photo at the very least. You'd be blown away. So my question to you is, how can you be Purple Cow in your life so you can stand out from the pack? Because the reality is life is literally like that analogy. There is a bunch of cows. You are one of them. And you are not standing out right now. But how can you be purple and stand out? Like, what is something wild you can do? Get creative. When 100 people are sending a resume, send a video resume. Like, what can you do that's going to make you stand out from the pack? And that has got me in so many doors in my life. That has probably been the very thing that has opened the most amount of opportunity for me, is applying that frame with everything I'm doing. How can I be Purple Cow and stand out from the pack? And then the Atomic Habits one is, how can you implement little habits into your daily routine and those things compound into major things? It's tying back into that thing where you said, what is success, earlier in the conversation. I said, my success is an average Tuesday, and what does that look like? And have I held all those commitments to myself that I said I was going to? No one's here watching me, but I did not press snooze, and I did go in the ice bath because the night before, that was my plan to do in the morning. And I think reading Atomic Habits and understanding the power of these atomic little habits and how much they can change your life is profound. If you can be Purple Cow and stand out from the pack, and you can hold the commitments to yourself, the little ones that don't seem like much, but they actually are in the long term, you're ahead of 99.9% of the people, and you'll be able to have that edge over people and actually achieve the things that you want to achieve. Because at the moment, the harsh reality is most people listening to this show have done the same shit day in, day out.
Correct.
And it's the same as everyone else in the white picket fence next to you in their house as well. So what can you do that stands out? That's the very first thing I would say to people. You're doing the same shit that everyone else is doing, yet you're expecting different results. Change that and your life will start to change.
Beautiful, man. Chris, it's mate, it's been a pleasure getting to know you a bit better today, bro. As I said, we only kind of first spoke last night, but I've enjoyed keeping up with your journey in the short period of time that I have online, man. And you're having a big impact on people's lives, and I'm excited to see what that looks like in another 18 months or another 18 years, even more so. So appreciate your time today, man. I've really enjoyed it. I'm sure the audience has as well. And guys, if you have enjoyed this episode, whether you're listening or whether you're watching, we'd love for you to grab a screenshot of this episode, share it on your Instagram story, or send a link to a friend, someone that you feel like could take some value from this episode. But Chris, man, appreciate it. Looking forward to staying connected, and all the best.
Thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it, Danny.